Welcome to the Wealth Embodied podcast. I'm your host, Brianna Faringer, an attorney, spiritual guide, and wealth activator. I'm here to help you align your mindset for abundance and break through any glass ceilings with money. If you're ready to embrace your highest calling, manifest with more ease, and create a life that feels lighter and more aligned, then let's dive in. Hello, welcome to the Wealth Embodied podcast. I'm your host, Brianna. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I have a really interesting topic, a topic that I love so much. And here's the question I want to pose to you. If you were making more money today, let's just say today you started making $5,000 more a month, what would that mean to you? And what I mean by that question is, what would you do with it? Do you know what you would do with $5,000 extra a month or more or less if you got it? This is a really important question because the answer to this question defines whether or not you're going to build wealth or you're going to be broke the rest of your life. And this topic, I really wanted to talk about this because it stems from something that I saw on social media. And I love social media because I think it shows us where we need to heal. When something triggers you on social media, that's a message that there's an opportunity for healing. And, for me personally, I look at a bunch of money stuff online, so it gets fed to me, right? People talking about money, people talking about pay transparency, people talking about how much money they make, how much money they spend, how much money they're in debt. The algorithm feeds me those kinds of things. So I get a lot of content creators on, in my feed, like particularly on TikTok, that have to do with money. And there's this one, and she's 25. Her name's Blake. I do not know a whole lot about her. And in fact, I don't get a lot of her stories or her posts coming up on my For You page. It does come up and I do watch them because I do really like her. So I'm going to tell you what she does. Her name's Blake. She's 25 years old. She makes $50,000 to $100,000 take home. That's net of expenses every single month doing drop shipping. That is a lot of money. That's an enormous amount of money. $50,000 to $100,000 a month is what she is taking home, what she is putting in her bank after she is paying all of her business expenses. And she's very smart. And I love the way that she talks about money. So that's why I find her interesting. When people are talking about money in ways that don't interest me, I could care how much money they're making or what they're doing with it. But I find her to be really interesting because she's young and she's doing things with money that are so much smarter than the large majority of people. It shocks me. But what really triggered this topic for me is I saw this post. She posted something, it was like a week or two ago. And it's funny because a lot of her posts, she all of them are about drop shipping, right? She's trying to teach other people how to make money. You guys can do this too. I'm a high school dropout. I taught myself how to do this. I can teach you how to do it. You can make a bunch of money too. She's trying to encourage people to succeed. And she's getting so much hate, which I don't understand people giving hate online. That's a whole other topic. But she mostly films from her, I guess it's her house. I don't know. I didn't even pay attention to the background in any of her videos, but she posted this video last week or the week before that was like, I'm getting all these hate comments from people saying they don't believe I make as much money as I say I do because my kitchen isn't very nice. And I was like, this is why people are broke. And she actually said the same thing in her video, which I was so happy about, number one, because she's young. If I was at 25 making that much money, I can tell you, even though I was fairly responsible, I wouldn't have been as responsible as she is or she seems. I would have been spending lots of money on stupid stuff. And that doesn't mean she doesn't do that, but she was basically like, why would I spend a lot of money? Why would I spend all this money to have a luxury home or a luxury kitchen when I can use that money to work for me long term by putting it in investments. And her video was basically like, I rent a really nice house in a very nice neighborhood in an expensive part of town wherever she lives. She lives in Florida. She said, I live in a 3-bedroom home. She showed the kitchen. I'm like, that kitchen is perfectly fine. I mean, does it look like a luxury, high-end designer kitchen? No. But why do people need that? Like, it was so interesting to me that people, they think that because you make more money, you're supposed to spend more money. That is the mentality that keeps people broke in our country. So when I ask you, what would you do with extra money? If you don't know the answer to that question, you're probably always going to be broke. And number two, if you think it's to live a better lifestyle, you're also probably always going to be broke. Because no matter how much money you make, you're going to continue to spend it on things that do not really matter and do not build long-term wealth. I've seen it so many times, you guys. So if you're like, oh, if I had extra money, I would go buy a bigger house. There is nothing wrong with that, right? If you want a bigger house and that brings you joy and that's how you want to spend your money, do it. If you're going to do that to the detriment of long-term planning, I would tell you that's a very bad financial decision, though. I'm not judging it. I would never tell people what they should do with their money. I can tell you what I would do with my money. You can take that or leave it. For me personally, I would never spend money on stuff like that. Even if I was a millionaire, if I had millions of dollars, I would not go out and buy a big fancy house with a luxury designer kitchen and everything else. That to me is a giant waste of money. It just is. I'm one person. I don't need to live in a big fancy house or apartment or condo. I live below my means. I live in a very nice place, but it does not bring me joy to buy things just for the sake of buying things. And so for me, that just doesn't make sense to me, but it made me laugh because even in this woman's video, she said, you know, this is why you're always going to be poor. These people that left me these comments that basically said, there's no way you make that much because you don't even have a nice kitchen. She's like, you're going to be poor the rest of your life. And I absolutely agree with her because those are people who look at people that have more than them and they think, oh, that's what I'm supposed to be doing. When I have more money, I'm supposed to be getting a bigger house. I'm supposed to be buying higher end things. I'm supposed to be getting nice cars. I'm supposed to be buying designer bags. I'm supposed to be going out to nicer restaurants. No. You don't need to do that. You can. And if it brings you joy, yes, you should do those things, but not to the detriment of your long-term goals. The amount of people that don't have savings or they're not building assets is huge. And that is like one of my main focus, like my main areas of focus right now is helping people change their belief around what having more money means. If you were to make an extra $5,000 a month and you put that into investments, the amount of money that you would have in 10, 20, 30 years, you wouldn't even believe. You'd have millions. Not in 10 years. In 30 years, you would. So $5,000 extra a month is a lot of money, you guys. That's an extra $60,000 a year. There's probably people listening out there that's like, that's not very much money. $5,000 extra a month is a lot of money, especially if it is beyond what you need to live, right? So it's really important to think about, if I get more money, what am I going to do with it? This is one of the things I see with people. They don't know what they're going to do with money. And if money doesn't have purpose, it's not going to come to you, right? So a lot of people are like, I want more money. If you don't know what you want more money for, you're never going to have the amount of money that you truly desire. And if you do get it, you're going to lose it because you don't know how to hold on to it. So, and that's like with people that win the lottery. And I've talked about this before. People that don't have any idea what they're going to do with more money, when they get it, they blow it. They don't know what to do with it. Their nervous system cannot deal with the amount of stress from having that amount of money, what that means to them. That's not everybody, but it is a lot of them. And I know that without even knowing any of these people who have won the lottery. A lot of them end up going through bankruptcy. So I found that to be so interesting, and I loved what she said though. You're going to be poor if this is what you think, like that I'm supposed to have this like luxury kitchen. And she basically said like, look, I live in a nice neighborhood. I'm 25 years old. I rent this house. It's a 3-bedroom house. It's got a giant backyard. It's in a really nice place. It works for me. And then there was like a bunch of follow-up comments. And by the way, I don't read comments. She did follow-up videos like summarizing comments that people were leaving her. Then there was all these people leaving comments that are like, well, you obviously, if you're making that much money, you wouldn't be renting. Also, a mindset that people need to change. You don't have to buy a house or buy cars just because you make a lot of money. Whether to rent or own or lease or own is a personal decision based on each individual person's financial circumstances and what their desires are in the long run. For a lot of people, leasing a car is a much better and more economical option than buying one, particularly in luxury. So people that just automatically think, well, oh, you make more money, you should own a house. Why? If you've never been confronted with that decision, you don't know. You have to do the math for yourself. And it's not a generic answer, buy or sell, one or the other. It is a fact-specific inquiry based on each individual person's financial circumstances at the time they are doing that analysis or trying to make a decision. I have leased cars, I have owned cars. I have rented, I have owned houses or condos. Both of them have pros and both have cons. And in the market that we are in today, with interest rates having been so high, buying a house isn't necessarily the best thing to do. It might be, but it also depends on what you want to do with your life. This person is 25 years old. Why would she want to buy a house and be tied down to having to take care of something when she could rent and she can freely move about and travel and do all the kinds of things that she wants? It's just funny that these people, they make judgments about what they think other people are supposed to be doing with their money, and they have no financial wherewithal to understand these decisions, which is why when they have money, they're not going to know what to do with it. And so there's a lot of things at play here. Number one, do you have a mindset that making more equals spending more? And if you do, where is that coming from? Do you care a lot about what other people think about you? Are you trying to keep up with your friends, your family, your neighbors? Are you competing with other people? Those are important considerations. Don't spend money to keep up with other people, and don't spend money because you think it matters. The car you drive does not define who you are as a person. The amount of money in your bank account does not define who you are as a person, or how wealthy you'll be for that matter. None of those things matter. And so, if you think that making more equals spending more, where is that coming from? If you think that your worth is tied to the house you live in or what your kitchen looks like or the car you drive, I would very seriously consider why that is and look into healing that. I mean, here's the thing, and I think I've said this on here before. I live in a 1-bedroom condo. It's a nice condo, and it's in a nice neighborhood. And that suits me. I can afford to live in a much nicer place. I don't have a fancy designer kitchen. I don't have any of those things. It's perfectly fine, honestly, but I'm sure if people saw where I live, they'd be like, you don't make very much money, which I don't care. You know why? Because I have assets and I have income streams that are building me wealth long term and that are making money for me when I'm not having to work for it passively. I'm making passive income in addition to my active income that I'm making. And that for me is more important than living in a nicer place. I don't need to live in a fancy big apartment, condo, house, any of that stuff. It's not important to me. It really never has been. So if that's something that is really important to you, I would look at the reasons why. Has somebody told you that that's what being wealthy is? And if so, are you just doing it for other people? You have to be really clear about, who am I doing this for? Is this for me? Is this for somebody else? Why am I doing this? Don't work your entire life to not have anything to show for it. And buying things that are outside of your ability to live, outside of your ability to be able to save and build long-term wealth, they're just not good financial decisions. And what I would say is, everyone, unless you're like well-versed in all financial, different types of finances, financial products, all sorts of things, we can all use help in educating ourselves with finances. It's not something I was taught in school. Everything I've learned, I've had to learn on my own. And although I do know a lot about finances, I certainly don't know everything. But educate yourself. If you want to learn about things, read some books, look at YouTube. There's a lot of free resources out there online. Go to social media, look at people who are doing well, who are making a lot of money, and be like, how can I start to shift my beliefs around money and start to increase my understanding and education about how I can budget, how I can save, how I can change my spending habits to align with the things that I want. But the question I opened up with was, what would having more money mean to you? And I really would have you consider that. What would it mean to you? If you got a raise today, what are you going to do with that money? Think about it. Start to plan it out. Because when you know what you want, it makes it easier for you to get it. It's like setting a goal, right? But don't just be like, oh, when I get more money, I'm just going to buy a bigger house. If that really is what you want, do it. I'm not telling you not to do it, but I would just tell you to consider whether or not that's aligned with what your goals are for your life in the short term and the long term. The other thing I want to bring up is, when I see people online making these comments about other people, like all these people that are like, oh, you can't possibly make that much money because of how your kitchen looks. Those people are also going to be stuck forever because they are haters. When you're skeptical of everything, when you are not trusting of anything, it keeps you stuck. And I know because that was me. For the large majority of my life, I was a glass half empty, don't trust anyone, don't trust anything people are saying kind of a person. And I was still very successful, but I will tell you it's because it was hard, because I was relying on myself. And I knew that no matter what I wanted in life, I could achieve it, but I was doing it to the detriment of myself by excluding, number one, help from other people. And it was hard. Like, I look back on that and I'm like, that was if you have two choices of a way to go through life, and one of them is hard, to be negative about everything and only look at where things can affect, negatively affect you, instead of looking at where things can positively affect you, like looking at worst case scenarios instead of looking at the best case scenario. If you're constantly doing that, it keeps you stuck. And so I would say to you, that's another mindset shift I would start looking at. Am I super skeptical of things? And by the way, you can be skeptical of people and still be like, oh, but even if this person is making this amount of money that she says she is, how can I learn from her? How can I I should back up. Even if she's not making the amount of money she says she is, her content is actually really pushing people to achieve more in life and to build wealth, and that's what she wants for people. So let's say she's making it up that she's making this much money, which I know she's not. I can tell she's a very genuine person. She's got content on there that is trying to help people. So instead of just being like, where can I look at this person and nitpick her and take the negative, where can I take the positive? Instead of being so focused on the worst case, why not focus on the best case? Because I can tell you, you have a choice. And if you have a choice to focus on something that's helpful to you or something that's harmful to you, I don't understand why you wouldn't pick the thing that's helpful. And this is not about toxic positivity, right? This is not like being positive no matter what's going on. It's about taking every situation and saying, how can this serve me in some way? How can I make this useful to me? Even if maybe there's something I'm not sure about or I don't believe in, you can still be skeptical and use things to your advantage. You don't have to poo-poo everything just because you don't believe people can make that much money on the internet. By the way, if you don't think people are making that much money on the internet, you're missing out on an enormous opportunity, because if you want to do that, and you have the interest in making a bunch of content and posting it and trying to get brand deals and doing all that stuff, you should start doing it because you can make a lot of money. If you're trying to find a new business, go look up this woman on TikTok. Her name's Blake, and she does drop shipping. She'll teach you how to drop ship. You might start making millions of dollars too. So instead of looking at every person like, oh, they're not truthful or you can't possibly have that much money, why don't you like start to actually discern things for yourself and say, like, tune into the energy of a person and be like, do I think this is a genuine person? Based on what she's saying, not based on what the cabinets in her kitchen look like. And how can I take what she's saying in a way that can be helpful to me? I try to take little bits and pieces of everything that's happening throughout my day and be like, how can this serve me? Because if you're constantly like, everything is bad, everything is negative, everything is affecting me negatively, this life sucks, I don't believe anybody, your life is going to be miserable. It just is. You're going to be miserable, you're going to be stuck, and you're going to be broke. I don't want that for you. I want you to be wealthy. I want you to have assets. I want you to have a healthy life. I want you to have a healthy, positive mindset. And thinking about these things is really important. Not being so skeptical of other people. Figuring out how people can help you and how you can take things that are happening and be like, oh, how can this serve me? And also looking at, okay, if I'm going to start making more money, like let's say I could increase my income or I could reduce my expenses, how can I take that extra money to help me build my long and short-term goals? Instead of just mindlessly spending money on things. The amount of people that I see on like TikTok who are like, oh, I started making a bunch of money and I started like blowing it on all of these things and I wish I could go back and undo that. Those things are only temporary. Going out to expensive meals and like buying expensive wine, if that brings you joy, do it. But you shouldn't be doing that if you don't have the money to do it, number one. And if you're just doing it to try to like show that you're fancy, right? Don't go buy luxury vehicles if you can't afford one. Don't buy bigger houses just for the sake of doing it, unless you actually need a bigger house. Don't go out and buy cars or expensive cars just because you're making more money. Be thoughtful about the money that you have, the money that you make, how you're going to use it, because the more planning you do, the more likely it is you're going to achieve your goals. When you don't know what you want to do for money, when you get it, you will spend it. I guarantee you. It's not a question. It will happen. If you do not have goals for money, you'll just spend it mindlessly. I've seen people do this. And people often, when they start to look at it, they'll pick up on the pattern and they don't know how to shift it. Shifting your mindset starts with acknowledging it, becoming aware of it first, and then coming up with ways that you can start to build new habits around it. It's not going to change overnight, you guys. If you have a mindset you're trying to shift, it can take time for it to shift. You have to practice. It's like learning a new skill. If you wanted to go out and learn golf tomorrow, you're not going to take one lesson and not know everything about golf, right? This is the same thing with shifting your behaviors around spending, your behaviors around money, your thoughts around money. You have to become aware of what it is first, and then you have to come up with a plan of how am I going to change this thing, and practice. But if you have not sat down and decided, what would I do with more money if I had it? That's a good place to start. I would definitely do that. I would journal on it. I would journal what comes up. I would journal without judgment, like what's coming up. Do I want to go spend money on a nicer car? If I do, what's behind that? What's driving me wanting to do that? If I want to go out and buy designer handbags, there's nothing wrong with that. But if that's what you want to do, I would be like, why is that the thing that I want? Like if I was to get an extra $5,000 today, what would I do with it? For most people, I would hope you would say you would put it in an emergency savings account if you don't have one. That should be the very first thing that you do. Or pay off high interest debt, right? Not how can I spend this? How can I go buy more clothes? How can I buy things that I don't need? How can I buy things that are not going to bring me long-term joy? For me, I'd rather spend my money on experiences and being able to put money away in places so that I don't have to work for the entirety of my life. It doesn't mean I'm not going to work. I don't want to have to. I want to have enough money so that I don't have to be working just to be able to live. That sucks, you guys. And if you think that's not going to happen to you, I hope that it doesn't, but you can avoid that by starting to plan today if you haven't already done that. So think about what your priorities are for money. Think about where you are being very skeptical about things. There's a lot of things I talked about in here today, and so hopefully something resonated with you. Thank you so much for tuning in. Have a great day.
Hey, before you go, would you love to receive my 3-step masterclass to easily create and hold wealth for free? It's called Effortless Money, and it includes the exact framework to start attracting money effortlessly and manifesting abundance with more ease. If you want it for free, all you have to do is leave an honest review of the Wealth Embodied podcast, take a screenshot of this episode and put it in your Instagram stories and tag me at Brianna_Faringer, and we will send you the free Effortless Money Masterclass. This is how my clients have manifested a $13,000 check, a promotion resulting in a $30,000 salary increase, and significantly improved relationships. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I'll see you next time on the Wealth Embodied podcast.